Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Shreve Memorial Library Virtual Book Club. Tonight, we're joined with the Books Brats Book Club, and we are going to be discussing all things Ender's Game. So without further ado, Jackie, take it away.
Hey, I'm Jackie. Thanks for joining us tonight. Looks like we've got Samantha, Kirk, and Richard, and Samantha has to step out, so I'm going to be doing lead on this. So Kirk, Richard, have either of you guys read Ender's Game?
I have not.
I would just like to say before I hop off for a short bit that I actually wanted to read the book, but the time got away from me, so I cheated and I watched the movie.
That's not cheating. That's we're in the all things Ender's Game.
Yes. So I watched the movie, so I will be part of this conversation as soon as I return.
Okay, wonderful.
I did check out the series.
Mm-hmm.
So take a look at the series, and I didn't realize that. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard. You go.
No. You go ahead. You finish.
Okay, I did not realize how big the series is.
I was about to pull that up. Let me look that up.
Yes, there are many books. I have personally read Ender's Game, Speaker of the Dead, and the Children. Well, what was the third one, Jackie?
Hold on. I'm getting the list of all the books.
I remember the story. I just can't recall the book name. Anyway, I've read the third ones, or the first three, and I've watched the movie. There
yes.
are many.
Ender's Game, Speaker of the Dead, Genocide, and Children of the Mind.
Yes.
Did you read Children of the Mind?
I believe I did read Children of the Mind. Was that still the one where they were on the planet? Was that the conclusion of the main chunk of the series? I thought it was just the three.
I read the first three as well. Ender's Game, Speaker of the Dead, Genocide. I've also read one of the prequel books. And I'm trying to remember which one it is.
Yeah, I did read Children of the Mind.
I think it's called, I read Earth Unaware, I think. Which is...
I haven't read any of the extended universe books.
Well, if that's the right title, I'm pretty sure it was Earth Unaware. It's about the 100 years. It's about the original war.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't have the main characters at all in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what Ender's Game is now that we've talked about what we have and haven't done. So Ender's Game is a sci-fi novel written by Orson Scott Card. I almost said Orson Welles. Orson Scott Card. He first conceived of it and wrote it up as a short story, and it was published in a magazine in like 1977, and then he expanded it and turned it into a full-length novel, and it was published in 1985, where it won just every award you could get for science fiction at the time. Most notably, I think he got the Nebula Award, and what else? Ender's Game. Well, either way, several awards. Nebula Award, Hugo Award, Locus Award nominee. So it was a big deal even when it first, so it was a smash hit when it first came out. And without giving too much of away, Ender Wiggin is the main character. In the beginning of the story, he's a young boy, and he's got two siblings, a boy and a girl. And yes.
We've got a new participant.
Yes. Kriston.
And I believe Mr. Kirkley is also chiming in via text.
Oh, is he there? Hold on, let me open up my chat.
The screen name had the word Kirk in it, so I was assuming.
That's me.
Oh, that's
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yeah, Chris Chris said he may not be able to make it tonight. He said he might try to pop in. So we'll see.
I didn't know if you wanted the Christian to chime in on whether they read the books or not.
Yeah, Kristen, have you read the books or seen the film? Or is this brand new to you?
It'll be my first time.
Okay, great. So welcome to Ender's Game. I hope this discussion leads you to, at the very least, want to watch the movie, but hopefully pick up the books. There's quite a few books, but I mean, even if you read just the first book, it stands so well on its own. In fact, when I read the first book, when I read Ender's Game, I read it in college, and I loved it so much that I refused to. The logic is a little flawed here, but I refused to read the rest of the books of the series because I didn't want to ruin the first book. But I finally, like 10 years later, decided to read the second book, and I couldn't put it down. And then I had to read the third book, and then I decided I better stop here. Otherwise, I'm going to go read all 13, 14 books in this series. Which she's written it over a very long period of time. First book came out in 85. The most recent book came out 2019.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Well, that's the prequel series about the war. So let me get back to my brief introduction, which is, so you have Ender, and he has two siblings. I remember the brother's name is Peter, and the sister's name Valentine. Am I right? Is it Valentine? I think it is. And he has been selected to go to what's called flight school, which is a space station where they take young cadets and they teach them to prepare for war, because a century earlier, Earth got into a war with these aliens called the Buggers, or at least that's what everyone calls them. And Earth almost lost, but we managed to repel them, and they haven't been seen in a century, but we expect them to come back any day. So there's just this constant vigilance, military vigilance. And so that's where we pretty much start off the story, where you have this young cadet. And I mean, by young cadet, I mean like very young. I can't remember.
Like 10 or
Like
11,
10,
something like that.
yeah, very young. By the end of the story, he's an adult. So it does cover quite a few, but the bulk of the story takes place in his youth. I guess that's all I should say about it without getting, I don't want to give anything else away. But he's basically, the reason why the book is so attractive is because he is a hero in the story. He's also a victim in the story. I mean, the way the military trains him and the other cadets is pretty vigorous and very isolated, brutal. It's brutal. It's psychological. They do, emotional and psychological harm to these kids. Wouldn't you say that, Rich?
Oh, very much so. Like it really gets really deep into psychology and manipulating children's psychology, using children's psychology to manipulate them.
You know, and it goes beyond the whole like indoctrination into the military. It goes well beyond that. Like it's very interesting that Orson Scott Card had this very complex story, but it's still basically a YA novel. You know, it's this kid who's isolated and brutalized in this, but he is just not a quitter. And so he's our hero. he's our hero, but I
Tragic
don't.
hero.
He's our tragic hero. He's a tragic hero. Yes.
Yeah, I really, really enjoy the first book. And like Jackie said, it really does stand on its own, stand alone. You can do what she did and read the first book and, you know, not read anything else. And it's very satisfying. It's not left on a cliffhanger or anything like that. The next 3 books are almost like a trilogy. Would you say that, Jackie?
Yeah. Well, they've got a
Yeah.
connected story arc.
It's a connected story arc, but very, very different from the original book.
Yes, and when I read the second book,
different.
when I read the second book, I thought, wow, I can't believe. I thought now I think it's now I and sometimes I think the second book is better than the first.
It's so different, but still dealing. I mean, you're still with Ender, you know.
But he's an adult.
Yes, I guess that's not a.
Oh, so he's an adult by the
spoiler.
second book?
By the second book, he's an adult.
Yeah, he. I guess it's not a spoiler to say he kind of travels around the galaxy, I guess, or universe, and through time dilation, the rest of the world, it takes place like a few hundred years after the first book, but due to the time dilation of traveling through space,
like the movie Interstellar.
He's
staying young, but time is because he's moving.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like he'll take a 6-month journey in space, and 5 years will have passed, kind of thing,
or longer,
or much longer, because he travels around a lot. So he it's a few hundred years after the first book took place, but he's just what is he, in his 30s or something like that, Jackie?
30s. Yeah. So
yeah.
The second book, it's hard to talk about the second book without giving away the first book, but the second
it's
book,
definitely a continuation of you have answers to questions you didn't realize you had.
So
I have lots of questions.
So in the second book, so on the first book, there are no colonies beyond Earth. Humans are contained to Earth, though we have like a space force. By the second book, humans have colonized many planets, and a couple of hundred years have gone by, but Ender is still around because he's on a personal mission of self-redemption.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally on a mission for self-redemption. So he's constantly traveling, and he's looking for something in outer space. And then he gets involved with these people at this colony, and it's a very interesting, unique, and very creative story. I don't know where Orson Scott Card comes up with this stuff, but there's these, in the second book, it's very cute. There's these little aliens that live on this planet, and they're called the
Picaninos.
The Picaninos.
Picaninos.
Picaninos. They sound so cute and cuddly. They're tiny. They're like these little tiny creatures. I mean, people. They're aliens.
I think that's Spanish for like little pigmen, or like a nickname for little pigmen.
Little pigmen. I love it. And so the movie I found a little unsatisfying.
That was the movie or the book?
The movie.
I agree. I agree.
They did the story. They did the whole story, but the way they told it, they focused entirely too much on adults. You know, they had Harrison Ford in it. They also had that other actor.
Viola Davis was in it.
Viola Davis.
Can't recall his name.
Face was all tattooed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sir Ben Kingsley. Sir Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley. Yes, I was gonna say, Gandhi.
I
Ben
would have
Kingsley.
called him the Mandarin from Iron Man 3, but okay, Gandhi's good too.
So anyway, so the thing I didn't like about the movie was that I felt like there was too much focus on the adults, whereas in the books, the adults are there, but they're like way in the background. They're more like
They're like the atmosphere.
they're like the puppet masters, and so the story is so focused on Ender, and you have these adults who are in charge of the training program that he's in, the flight school, but they're not prominent, right? They're just kind of there manipulating things, making things worse and worse for Ender, and basically trying to break him and the other students. But in this movie, I feel like Harrison Ford is too prominent. There's too much interaction between him and Ender.
Well, I didn't read the book, but I felt like just watching the movie that there was a lot that we didn't get that was probably in the book. Like I felt like the whole flight school situation was rushed because he was here 1 minute, then he's promoted, then he moves to another group, he's promoted, and it was like boom, boom, boom. And so I feel like there's a lot of dynamics and things that we missed that were probably in the book that they didn't do in the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like they were trying to tell a story in a very short amount of time and making it move very fast. So when it got to the end, I was just like, okay, that happened. Now what? It's kind of like, okay.
I feel like
it could have very easily been a 2-part movie.
Yeah. So
probably
the movie
would have did it more justice.
The other thing that bothered me about the movie is I felt like they were too focused on visual effects, like they were too focused on the design of the flight school. So one of the aspects of the flight school is that they play this game, which has nothing to do with what they'll actually be doing when they go to war, which is that they are in a room where they can float around and play laser tag. So they're playing laser tag, but presumably they're going to be like fighter pilots in outer space eventually. But
it's a strategy game that they play.
It's a strategy game. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're learning strategy. They're learning teamwork, leadership. They do that in the military now. You do like capture the flag type of things. It's basically capture the flag, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
A high-tech version.
High-tech version.
A high-tech version of freeze tag.
With guns.
With guns and lasers.
And that's also just like appealing, right? For all of us who like gaming. That the game is just constantly evolving and changing, and so basically Ender keeps winning, and so his instructors just keep making it more and more awful for him, trying to make him lose. So but he's not a quitter.
I feel like the movie fell into the pitfall that all book adaptations fall into, as they never meet the expectations of the reader. But I feel like it was a good movie. They did have to adapt it to film. They had to tell essentially a 10-hour story in 2 hours. So they had to compress a lot of things.
They could have focused a lot more, though, on the psychological aspect of the story.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, you have to. I always, whenever I'm a little disappointed, I have to go. They had to. They tried.
You just kind of pat them on the back.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like
it's like
it's okay, movie. You did okay.
And that's why I really am interested in Samantha's perspective, because I'm always let down by the movie if I read the book first. That's why I like watching the movie first before I read the book. This way, there's never any letdown. You just get a much better version of what you just watched.
Yeah.
But so
I
you were
didn't
let
read the
down by
book.
the movie?
Well, I was, because I felt like it was such a big build up to like that last battle, and when they, explained to him what really happened, and then he was all upset, and then it went on to why he has to redeem himself. Like, I felt that part literally was 5 minutes of the movie. Like, it was big battle, then boom, 5 minutes of why I need to redeem myself. And I don't know if y'all went through all that, so I don't want to like give it away, but at that point I was just like, okay, now where's the rest of the story? I'm like, what's going to happen next? I felt like, I think they could have done a little bit more with the psychological. I think Viola Davis was that's why they went back to the adults so much in the movies, to kind of let you know that they're trying to test them, and they're looking and testing them on these different things to see how they'll react to different situations. But I felt like all of that was like really boom, boom, boom. And this kid was like an adult in a kid's body. Like, he was completely in control of everything, and he was the adult, and he couldn't be swayed, and he was laser focused on what he wanted to do and how he needed to win. So I just felt like there was a lot of, okay, we're practicing, we're doing this, and then boom, it's over, and now I have to redeem myself. I don't know. I felt like I was missing something. I felt like there was a part of the story that I wasn't getting.
Well, the part you weren't getting in the story, so they focus basically on isolating him.
Right.
They want him to be under as much pressure as humanly possible to see if he'll break. What they're hoping is that he doesn't break, because they want basically they're like grooming him to be a general, right? Like a war czar. And
he's like already that as a child. Like, he comes in and he's just like, I've been playing these games for so long that you can, like, I'm always 20 steps ahead of you. And,
Well, I think that the
hero's journey is much more developed, and the impact of the end is much more impactful in the book.
Well, for instance, in the book, there's 13 years after the event of the battle that you were talking about before he decides to go redeem himself. In the movie, it's like he goes to sleep, has a restless dream, and he's just like, oh, I got to go do a thing.
Right. Pretty much.
But in the book, it's 13 years of him just like
wrestling with it.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of pages, but you read that it's, this is this thing that's been haunting him.
Yeah. The movie left me like, okay, so what happens next? Like, where's part 2 of this? Because you clearly set me up and let me go.
Gotta read the second.
I gotta read the second book now.
Earlier I said the first one didn't leave you on a cliffhanger. It is kind of a cliffhanger, but if he never wrote another book, you would still be satisfied.
Yeah. It ends with you thinking that he may find the redemption that he needs.
Okay.
That's how the book ends, basically. So it's still good on its own, because it leads you thinking, well, maybe he'll be able to find peace with everything that happened.
Yeah. So how many books are there in the series? Do we know?
Okay. So the original Ender series is 4 novels.
Okay.
It's Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, and Children of the Mind. Then you have, and I told you that there were 2 siblings, Valentine and Peter. Mm-hmm. That's a whole subplot to the book, but it's a very important subplot, because they basically, his siblings represent like
the 2 halves of him, right?
The two halves of him. And basically his sister is there. Okay, so all three of the children are geniuses. They're all geniuses. The brother Peter is cynical, manipulative, and
Cruel.
cruel.
Yeah,
The
quick
sis-
to anger is how they
and-
described him in the movie.
And the sister is good and kind. And Ender doesn't know who he is because he sees the value of cruelty, how cruelty can be used to his benefit. But he also understands why it's important to be good too. And so he's like, he struggles with his relationship with his siblings, though he doesn't really have a relationship with them because he's been separated from his family because they send him off to this school.
Mm-hmm.
So the second series, so these are like individuals, these are series in the same universe. So the second series is called Shadow, they're the Shadow books. There's Ender's Shadow, Shadow of the Hegemon, and Shadow Puppet, and Shadow of Giant. They're all about the brother Peter. And I believe Ender's Shadow, I've never read it, but I believe it takes place chronologically at the same time Ender's Game takes place. But it's like everything that's going on with his brother Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
Because didn't both of his siblings go to the school too, but for whatever reason they were kicked out because
I don't
the
think
brother was angry, or they just didn't
they were screened. They were
screened
potentially
out. Okay.
they were screened out. So the thing is that the government is more invasive.
They were, well, they did selective, almost selective breeding to try to create like a perfect general, and like they were on track to. They never made it up to the space station, but they were both in the same thing
program.
that Ender was. Yeah, the program, and Peter was scrubbed out for being too cruel, and she was scrubbed out for being too kind. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the things that they mentioned in the book was that the parents had to have permission to have Ender because they were only, I guess, supposed to have 2 children, and they had to have permission from the government to have a 3rd child. I thought that was interesting.
Yes. Yeah. There's this overpopulation. And I missed one book, though, in the first series. After Children of the Mind, there's Ender in Exile. Okay, and so then the next series there is after, so there's the original Ender series, and there's the Shadow books about the brother Peter, and then there is the Formic Wars books, which, so I told you the aliens are named buggers, but that's like slang. They're actually called the Formic. And so the Formic Wars take place 100 years before the events of Ender Game. And there's a bunch of books in this. So basically there's 20 books.
So I'll be reading them all summer.
Yeah. So if you want to just get started.
I was very satisfied reading the first 4.
Okay.
Have
The
any
first
of you
one, and then the trilogy after.
have any of you guys read any other Orson Scott Card?
I have not.
I didn't know he wrote anything else.
I'm trying to remember the name of the series that I read by him. I read it a very long time ago. Let's see. Looking up his bibliography. Oh yeah. It's the Homecoming Saga. I read Homecoming Saga, first book being called Memory of Earth. And so Orson Scott Card is a Mormon. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the Mormon faith, but he wrote this science fiction series that kind of pulls in elements of like Mormonism, and so it's this idea that humanity left Earth and colonized another planet, and then because Earth needed time to heal because we had done so much damage to it. But in order to prevent humanity from doing it again to another planet, they used AI to keep people technologically unadvanced. So like there was some technology, but not others. Like you would have ray guns, but you still traveled by horse, you know, like it didn't make sense. And it was like because the AI was preventing people from coming up with these inventions, like making the next leap technologically. And so anyway, that has nothing to do with Mormonism, but the idea was that he has a selection. The AI selects people to go back to a ship and come back to Earth and to colonize it, and to write on gold like religious teachings and bury it. And that's like one of the narratives in the Mormon faith. Anyway, it's an interesting series, and I am surprised that after I read Ender's Game and the Homecoming series that I haven't read more Orson Scott Card, because he's got a very creative mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention. This Enderverse, it like I said, I've only read the first 4 books, but it's unlike any other science fiction as far as his the creativity of the structure of the the world that he lived, that the human race, and of the other types of life that are out there. It's very, very intriguing, and unlike any other, because a lot of times science fiction is just kind of recycling the same kind of thing, but just tweaking it different, tweaking it a little bit. And this is completely different. This is original and very, very intriguing.
I agree.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm sorry, it's Kirk, right?
Yeah.
It's I if you are a science fiction fan and you want to read something original, I would definitely suggest getting into it. Like I said, I only have experience with the first 4 books, but by the second book, you're like, wow, I really have not really even thought about something like that before. I didn't even think that would be possible. And it keeps getting like that. He just goes really, really deep into it. It's really good. I would suggest at least looking at it.
Well, cool. Yeah, I was going to ask, how does this compare to? I don't have a great grasp of that like mid sci-fi between early, like Isaac Asimov to present day. But I think Ursula Le Guin would have been a contemporary, and some of what you were reminded me of The Dispossessed.
I haven't read it.
It was, she was her father was a sociologist, and so you can see that in the way that The Dispossessed is. So there are travelers that go to a lot of different worlds. It's part of a thing called the Hainish cycle, which I have not, I haven't read all of that. I just know enough of I've read The Dispossessed, and I've read enough of Ursula Le Guin's other stuff to be able to talk about it a bit. Or I'm not sure what else. I know like other books that from the 70s or 80s, like I think that Oh, The Dark is Rising, the Susan Cooper fantasy book
Mm-hmm.
that came out around that time.
I didn't read it. I've only read like 5 books.
I read The Dark is Rising. Actually, I actually read that one way back forever ago.
Yeah, I just remember that, I know that Ender's Game and The Dark is Rising are kind of like the very beginning seeds of like young adult literature that we think about when we think of like, that and like the Earth Sea cycle are the things that led to Harry Potter and what we read now. And that is just the end of my ramble. I don't know where else I was going with that.
Well, thanks for rambling, Kirk. I have a question for Jackie and Richard. So far this book club, we have talked about
Science fiction.
science fiction, right? We've talked about the Enderverse. Last time we talked about the Duneverse.
Yes.
And we started off this talking about the Expanse.
Yes.
So just
Expanse.
thinking about all of those series that we've talked about, because those are all massive series, like which of those three, the Expanse, Dune, and Ender's Game, are your favorites? Like which one, how would you rank those? Tough question.
That's a tough question. I would say that Dune is the best.
I would also say that I would concur that Dune would be at the top, followed up very, very closely by Enderverse.
Expanse is fantastic, but it doesn't have the
depth.
We'll see. Well, it's not that it doesn't have the depth.
Well, the library, the depth of content.
Right, and the psychological aspect of Dune and Ender's Game is absent from the Expanse.
Yeah, it's more politically driven.
Yeah, which I love. It's like Game of Thrones in space. I mean, a little less murdery, but but yeah.
Okay, so Dune first, Ender's Game second, and Expanse last but not least.
But last but not least, Expanse.
Out of those three, that's how I would rank them.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
I'm not sure if it's just because I read Dune much, much earlier than I read Ender's Game, and it's just been with me longer.
Yeah. Well,
I only
maybe
read
the
Ender's Game
Expanse,
like 10 years ago.
Maybe the Expanse will, as it ages, gain more gravity.
Yeah. Well, great.
Yeah,
well,
that's how I would have to.
Well, now that I've watched the movie Ender's Game, I will read the book and the next book so I can know what's going on, because the end of the movie left me like, okay, where's part two?
And that's another thing that movies try to do.
Mm-hmm.
They try to purposefully, leave it, close it off, but leave it as much of a cliffhanger as they can. Because
And
I feel
they
like
did that. I need the sequel.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. I don't think it did too well
at the box
they
office.
Would invest the money at the box office,
which is
where
why
they're going to invest the money in the next one. But the book was more. The end of the first one was more rounded off and kind of, okay, this is his goal now, but it was a satisfying. That's like a man walking out into the sunset kind of ending. It's like, okay, now he's got to do this for the rest of his life. And you're like, okay, he's gonna do that for the rest of his life. All right, but then the next one comes out. It's like, okay, well, here's how he did it. You're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And that's the end of my ramble. Everyone gets one.
Everyone gets a ramble. So
it's really hard. That ramble was really hard without giving away anything, by the way.
Right. Well, that's why when I came back on, I was like, I don't want to give away what happens in the movie without, having read the book. But,
So not related to Ender's Game in any way, but since I have a captive audience of people who like science fiction, how excited is everyone to see the HBO version of Justice League?
The Snyder Cut.
The Snyder Cut is coming out. Are you guys?
I'm only a little excited.
Do you guys know about this? Samantha, are you familiar?
Don't know about this. I'm not a big Justice League fan.
Okay, well, you should be.
And you're a terrible person for not.
I'm not.
Okay. So this is what happened. Zack Snyder, he's the one that made Man of Steel. So he did Batman versus Superman, and then he was going to do Justice League, and he filmed the entire movie, and they were editing it, and he had to leave the project because he had a personal tragedy in his family. And they hired, what's his name? J.J. Abrams, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it
was it J.J.
J.J.
Abrams?
No, it was.
Let's see.
Wasn't it Ron Howard?
Wait. Hold on. I'm going to get my story right. Who's the director? Justice League director. Josh Whedon.
Josh Whedon. I wasn't too.
Sorry, J.J. Abrams.
And Ron Howard.
And Ron Howard. So when he did what they wanted him to do, which was that they did test screenings, and the studio wanted
digitally removed Henry Cavill's mustache, which is ridiculous.
Okay, no. Let me explain what happened. So Schneider leaves the project. He was supposed to come back. He wound up not coming back. Then they do some test screenings, and they said that the movie's too dark. So they hired Josh Whedon. Josh Whedon comes on board, and they say, "This is your project now, and we want it to be lighter, funnier, not so doom and gloom."
And is that what happened to the Justice League movie that we saw?
So they went back and they reshot like tons and tons of scenes, just tons and tons of scenes. And they had to get Henry Cavill to come back as Superman and reshoot him like almost entirely. And he had a mustache, and they wouldn't let him cut it off because he was working on Mission Impossible, and he had a mustache, and so they wouldn't let him shave it. So then they digitally removed it, and it looked weird. And I kept thinking the whole time, what's wrong with his lip? and so the movie was fine, but it wasn't what it wasn't what they were building up to, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So it's to me, it became pretty forgettable. Well,
yeah, the pacing was all off because they were using scenes from basically another movie, and they were splicing in other scenes, and they completely changed who the villain was, and they completely changed the tone and theme.
It was a different movie. It was a different movie than Zack Snyder had filmed. Zack Snyder always wanted to go back and make his version, and HBO and I don't know who owns the movie. Is it Warner Brothers?
Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm at HBO Max. Yeah. That makes sense.
So Warner Brothers and HBO partnered with Zack Snyder to re-edit the movie, and they wouldn't let him shoot new scenes, but they let him do new CGI, new sound, new visual effects, and re-edit the movie entirely. And
Yeah, they gave him $50 million to
$50 million to re-edit the movie, and it's basically an entirely different movie.
Well, I might watch
that's
that.
super cool.
Yeah, it was his original.
Watch the trailer, and if you've seen the old movie, the original 2017 movie, watch the trailer, and you're gonna say, "Where was this movie?"
Right.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because I feel like the DC movies that are darker are more true to the comics, and they're better than the fluff and stuff ones, and just don't like those. So I might like this one.
Yeah, it's the realism, and I use the term loosely,
Right.
is why the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is so popular, because it's like, oh, okay, well, what if there was a guy that actually built this, kind of thing, and it kind of pulls it into our world, and I feel like that's what Zach was doing, but in a slightly different way. If you look at the other movies that he did, they definitely felt like they were in the same universe, like the Marvel movies do. And then this movie came out, and it was like, we're doing this now, and everyone's like, it was just like a gear.
It felt like
finding.
a misfit. It was just a misfit.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, when it came out, I had no idea this whole thing happened with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon, and I only know about that because of the Snyder Cut and articles that have been written about it to get you pumped up about it.
Well, I might check that one out.
Yeah, it's coming to HBO Max, I think.
The end of the month, huh?
It's coming in March.
We're in March.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. When?
Wait, what?
Tell me.
When?
Tell me.
March.
I want to know.
March. Justice League.
You didn't know?
Hold on. I need the date. Don't leave me hanging here.
Cliffhanger.
March 18th.
I'm sure.
In 9 days.
9 days.
Wow.
I knew it was this month. I thought it was the end of the month. I'm excited to live again.
Well, I'm really excited because we're sleep training Josephine just so I can watch this movie. No. No. Except we won't be able to listen to it. She's a light sleeper, so we'll have to have the little subtitles. I'm like, I'm sure the soundtrack's great.
Right. Oh. Okay, well, I'll put that on my to be watched list.
Yeah, put that on your watch list. I'm excited. And I think it's a long movie too. I think it's a pretty long, it might be over 3 hours.
Wow.
They're going to run it as a movie. It's not going to be like a little HBO series.
Oh, it might be in more than one part.
Oh. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I thought
it's 4 hours and 2 minutes. Pardon me.
Oh.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
That is a long movie.
What?
That's like Lord of the Rings.
So what I'm hearing is that the next Books and Brats should be all things Justice League.
Like, did
Sure.
do a comic book theme one.
Sure. Should we?
I don't know that I have 4 hours to watch a Justice League movie.
Look, just pretend like you're watching 2 movies.
Just pretend like you're binge watching a 4-episode series.
I know.
Now that I could probably do.
You're like, I'll watch 12 episodes of Bridgerton, but I won't watch a 4-hour Justice League movie.
I have not seen a single episode of Bridgerton.
I haven't seen it either.
That is not my cup of tea.
My sister texted me in the middle of the night, like, you gotta watch Bridgerton. And I was like,
I didn't know.
What's that?
I don't even know that word, and I thought you had just made that up on the spot.
It's a. Oh no, can you hear my daughter?
There's little Josephine.
Don't come in here. No.
She doesn't want us to watch Bridgerton either.
Like, it's not well written. No.
I haven't seen it, but my friends love it. So
Yeah, my sister said it's all about matchmaking and drama. And
Richardson sounds like somebody tried to make up a last name, and there was also a bridge nearby, and they looked at it and used that to make a last name.
they might have.
I like that we're
What's your-
knocking Bridgerton, but none of us have actually seen it.
What is your last name, sir? Richardson.
My friends love it, but I'm not into any kind of romance drama
That's exactly what it is.
shows. Like that just is not my cup of tea. But if you're into that, I hear it's pretty great because my friends absolutely love it and they binge watched the whole series. And I was like, I'm not getting on the crazy train with you people. I'm not doing that. But they love
Sounds like a chick thing.
I have not watched it. I did not realize there were so many Bridgerton books, though.
But
It
there
is a
are.
massive series. Yeah,
The
yeah.
massive
We
series.
could do all things
Oh,
Bridgerton
we
for
could
the
do-
next one.
It was probably well attended.
I bet people would love that.
Oh my God. How many do I have to read?
only
If
20.
No.
Oh my
If-
God.
if-
Should I do that to us? Should we watch?
Maybe
should
we can do a Bridgerton book discussion because I'm sure, I mean, people are into it.
Let me see how many
really
pages
into
is
it.
the first book. Hold on. I'm going to look up the page.
I'll watch
count.
a show since we've been doing nothing but sci-fi things.
It'd
I'll
be a
come
nice
out of my
change.
box. Yeah, I'll come out of my box and watch a romantic
Yeah,
comedy
I've-
drama show.
I was going to say the Binti series has been on my list. The Nnedi Okorafor sci-fi series.
Oh, yeah.
It's another one that has. I think there's going to be a HBO mini series for it,
cool.
and it's supposed to be pretty cool.
What's it called?
Binti, Binti.
I haven't heard of this.
I've loved Who Fears Death. She's another like wins all the Hugos.
Well, maybe we should do a
Binti is a
Hugo Award
African
list of
African
things to read.
futurist science fiction horror novella. Ooh, novella, that's appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Means
That
it's
That's a
sounds
lot
really
of-
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
here,
lot of
let me,
Descriptive words.
Let
it's
me
96 pages.
I can read 96 pages.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Here, let me read.
I can
Let me read
96
the
pages.
first paragraph of the description.
Yes.
So it's about Binti. She is the first of the Himba people to be offered a place at Umza University, the finest institution of higher learning in the galaxy. But to accept the offer will mean giving up her place in her family to travel between the stars among strangers who do not share her ways or respect her customs.
I like this.
Sounds
This
like
sounds
life.
good. And it's a Nebula Award winner.
Yeah. Okay, so we're
Maybe
getting
we should
into
like pull our book ideas from like the collection of people that have won Hugo Awards and Nebula Awards.
So this is just going to be, we're just going to be blatantly a sci-fi book club.
I was gonna say maybe we could, because we're at the end, maybe we can poll and see, what's the interest. Like, do they want to do Bridgerton or Binti or Justice
Or
League?
something else. Or Justice League.
Or Justice League.
I'll be more helpful with the Justice League one.
I'm trying to find how many pages
saying.
are in. Okay, so the first Bridgerton book is The Duke and I. Let's look that up, see how many pages that is.
I bet it's more than 96.
Duke and I.
I really like Samantha's idea about making like a poll to see
Yeah.
and letting the people,
The
all
people.
of the people.
Yeah, we can say,
Decide.
we're undecided. Which would you like to hear more about or join a conversation about? So we have 3 options.
I feel like people are going to want us to do Bridgerton, but I don't know.
People might surprise you. They might. And then I might surprise myself. I might actually read Bridgerton and say, oh my gosh, I love this.
You're just all like, hold on, let me get my popcorn. What did they say? What'd they do? Oh no, she didn't.
Love it.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. Bridgerton's first book. Where is it? 432 pages. We should read Minty.
That's a lot more than 96.
20 words.
Well, how about this? Why don't we do Binti for May, and let's pencil in. Wait, not May. April, I don't know what month it is. It's March.
We have a book club meeting on April 13th, and we're going to be reading Pop's Life of Louis Armstrong with the Red River Readers Book Club on April 13th.
Yeah.
So we can do May. We can shoot for May.
The old triple R.
Let's do Binti for May. And seriously consider doing Bridgerton for June.
When does the new season of Bridgerton come out?
Well, the first season just came out.
Well, it just ended and people are ready for the second season. They're like, we want more of this.
They're just like, I just need some more scandal.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay,
How many episodes is the first season? I wonder.
Probably like several.
I don't know, but my friend told me that she binged and she was up till 4 a.m. watching Richardson.
What I like about this book club meeting is that our subject and our discussion is real tight. Like we're really on point here.
Well, we talked about Ender's Game, and then we.
I feel like we talked about as much of it as we could without
giving it away.
Yeah.
He did not say who won Ender's Game.
Who won?
Yeah.
We didn't really say what was the game.
Are there ever any winners or losers? Really?
Yeah, we didn't tell you what the game was.
Or has no.
Was it a game?
Okay. Bridgerton has 8 episodes.
Okay, it's not bad.
I mean, it's no 4-hour Snyder cut. It's just an 8-hour.
Okay, so Kirk will poll on social media. He can do that for us and see, of these 3, which would you want to see? And so we can see if maybe we do need to have a Justice League conversation. Maybe we do need to have a Bridgerton conversation. Maybe we do need to have a Binti conversation.
Well, I'm going to read Binti either way. Also,
Binti sounds awesome.
I'm also going to plug another novella series, Murderbot. Richard, have I mentioned this to you?
Murderbot.
It's about a robot that's an AI. It's like a soldier robot, but it's an award-winning series. The books are very short. They're quick reads, and I've done the first 3 or 4 of them on audio, and I just love them. I have no idea how many are there, but they're very quick reads. But if you're looking for something to read, if you read Binti and you're just like, need more novellas.
Yeah, I see that it also
from a murder bot. He killed somebody again. Murder bot. That elusive murder bot. He's up to his antics again.
Richard, it's not Futurama.
That's all he does. He's a robot. He murders things.
No, he doesn't murder. Okay, look.
He's a robot with feelings.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I apologize to all the murder bots out there.
He's a personal security bot. He's like private security.
Well, I was going to say that it looks like it swept the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Awards, so that would be keeping in with the theme.
Right, yeah, and that could be the theme. Instead of Binti, it could be Hugo, Nebula award-winning novellas. Think Binti and Murderbots.
Sure. We can just do that for a little while until we decide to do something different. And then we're only going to read Regency romances for a while. Years ago, I was in a book club where our goal was to read
all the Goosebumps books.
Yes.
Sorry. I apologize.
I'm totally with that because I've read pretty much all of the original Goosebumps books way back
scary for me.
middle
Too
school.
Scary.
Loved it.
No, our goal in our old book club was to read a book to be the best representative of its genre. So we were, every time we met, we were reading a different genre. And I got introduced to a lot of books I never would have read otherwise.
That sounds like a great book club that I would fail at.
It was a great book club. For
I would
instance,
fail miserably.
we had to read science, and we read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. We were going to read, but we didn't read it, a sports book. We were going to read The Sweet Science, which I did later read. It was a book about boxing. So we read a lot of nonfiction because we were trying to cover a lot of ground. Richard, I can see your chin very well.
Oh, sorry. There's a strange vehicle at my home.
Oh, well, please be careful.
I got nothing to worry.
Well, it is about that time. This has been a fun conversation and discussion. Thank you all for being with us.
Okay, so did we decide Venti?
We have not decided anything, I don't think.
Okay.
But I think
Okay,
we're
that's
leaning towards Hugo Nebula Award winners with Binti and Murderbots as prime
Murderbots.
examples.
Okay.
These are what we're leaning towards, but we will let everyone know. And thank you all again for joining us. And you can check out all of our book club discussions on our YouTube channel. So thanks, everyone. Good night.